All right, for today, I asked the students to start with a slope, and I'm hoping that this part was easy. 5 minus the negative 3 over negative 6 minus the 7. Now, if you're not good at these kinds of things, it's okay. We allow calculators in this class. So you could have just done that on a calculator, but it'll be faster if you knew that that meant plus. And 5 plus 3 is 8, and I bet most of you could do that in your head. And then negative 6 minus 7. Again, I know some of you are not good at this, but it's negative 13. And so there you go. There's your fraction. Who had 8 over 13, but it's negative? Okay, awesome. And then you got one of your skills down. That's critical. Now, what if you don't need the slope? Because, see, I don't need to find the slope on this one. They told me the slope. They told me the slope is 5, 6. So I know m is 5, 6 on the original one. But they wanted it to be perpendicular to it. So which slope should I use? Negative 6 over 5. Do you get what happened there? It's opposite, opposite. So my slope's going to be that. My point is going to be that. And if you don't know a slope point, let me introduce you. Y minus y1, m, x minus x1. And the point goes here. And that means this 0, be careful. It's so tempting to put it in the first spot because it's the first number, but you don't. It goes there because it's the x. And this is the y. So I go y minus 1 equals negative 6/5 x minus 0. Now, some smart kid is going to say, I just wanted to use, like, put it in that other form. And so I replaced x minus 0 with just an x. And I would say, you're right, x minus 0 is just x. So if you left it this way, that's cool. If you added 1 to both sides, it'd be even better because now it's in a form that you all recognize, y equals mx plus b. See, it's got y equals, that's the slope. Well, technically just this is the slope. Just this part. And then the plus b is the plus 1. So y equals negative 6/5 x. And I'm moving the 1 over. I did not tell you you had to. I hope you get that. Unless they tell you you have to get slope-intercept, you wouldn't have to solve like I did. That is super critical. And I get, up to this point, a lot of you have had troubles with this kind of thing. Okay, so if you know that's you and you're like, dang, I can't do what you just did, come in the morning and get some help. With one-on-one, it can totally change things. I can get you to understand stuff you've never understood before because you're older now, and I've taught this a long time, so I got some good tricks. So if you need more help on this, please come in and ask. Tomorrow is one of those mornings where a Thursday you can get help. All right, on to... This is a reminder that y equals mx plus b is a really important form. It's called slope-intercept. This one's a really important form, and that's called point-slope because you put a point here and here, and the slope is still there. Okay, and there is one more. We haven't talked about it yet, but this is the last kind, and it's called standard form. And it's got the x here and the y here, and this and this and this are just numbers. Okay? That's like this. 3x plus 4y equals 7. See how the x is first, the y is second, and the 7 is last? There's 3 different forms that you can use, and you'll have to on your next test. They might say, put the answer in standard form. Well, then you got to put the x in the front, and the y is in the middle, and the number is last. All right, so one more thing about standard form is it's illegal to have a fraction in it. So if there was a 4/5 in your problem, you would have to clear that out. And I've taught you how to clear fractions because it's right on the basic 20. The basic 20 has clear fractions on it because remember you'd multiply by 5, so you just multiply everything by 5. Is that hard to multiply by 5 and clear that out? See, it's gone. Now there's no more fractions. That's not that bad. You can do that. All right, so let's get a kind of normal equation. Y equals 6x minus 7. Everybody write that one, please. First off, you got to know what form it's in right now. So write it down on your iPad. You can do this. If you just watch me, it's much easier, but you won't remember it. What form is that in? Slope what? Slope intercept. Good. If I wanted this in standard form, I've got to rearrange it. Now, our district teaches this by saying subtract 6x from both sides. My district, and this is, like when I was a kid, we taught it a different way, and I just want to show you a different way. Maybe you'll like my way better. My way that we taught in my high school back in the day was if you want, you can move this to the other side of the equation. You just have to make it negative. Do you get, that's going to do the same thing as subtracting 6x from both sides, but it's quicker. Maybe you'll like this way better. See that 6x? I'm going to put it over here and call it minus 6x. And that's not here anymore. Do you like that way better? You can do it that way if you want to. I'm good with that. Do you guess the same thing as going minus 6x and minus 6x? It's just faster, saves you a little time. You can do that. And why was that good? Because now, look, it's in standard form. I have to put a plus in there. I have to know that that's a positive y. It wasn't a negative y, right? And I didn't multiply both sides by 6x, so maybe that's going to be a bridge too far for some of you to just move something from here to the other side and make it negative. But I don't think it's that hard. Or you could have subtracted 6x from both sides, and you'd have this either way. So now what form's it in? Standard form. All right. That has got to be a cell phone. Boo, put it in your backpack. Don't take it out again. Now I got to send an email. Okay. So I'm going to now convert this thing to the other form. Point slope. No, I'm not. You would never do that. I would never, ever ask you right now to convert this to point slope. That would just be such a pain in the butt. Usually you start with point slope. Y minus 6 equals 2 times x plus 1. That is in point slope. But here's a very typical problem. You start with that because somebody told you a point and a slope, so you made this. Slope was 2, point was negative 1. See, I used the opposite of the plus 1. And positive 6 was the point. Okay. And then they say, make this into, well, either form. If you want this to be in another form, either one of them, either standard form or slope-intercept form, either of those forms, you're going to have to distribute it. So do you see why we made you distribute on the first test? Comes up a lot. So go ahead and distribute this out and then solve it for y. And we'll see what happens. And then you just get used to it. Back to the headphone. Probably just fits in. I fall asleep with my headphones in sometimes. All right. Zane, tell me what you got when you multiply that up. So the y minus 6 is here, and I have a 2x plus 2. Awesome. Now, that isn't in any form right now, because I took it out of point slope, and it's not in any form. Now, if I really wanted standard form, I could move the x over like I just said a second ago. But the easiest form to get right this second, did you know you could move a number to the other side and just make it the opposite? Maybe you're going to like that way better. Could I have added 6 to both sides? Yep. What would have happened? Plus 6 and minus 6 would have canceled, and then I'd still have that 6 over there, wouldn't I? For some of you, this is, I can tell, like really weird. You don't have to do it that way then. If you don't like this way, then just just add 6 to both sides. You'll be fine. And then this will cancel this. And now, 6 plus 2 is 8. 2x plus 8. Ooh, a new form. What form is this? Well, I see the slope right away, and I go, so slope what? Slope intercept. The other one I think you could call slope point. Nobody's going to care if you call it point slope or slope point. This one doesn't have a point. It has a slope and an intercept. All right. Then take a wild guess which form I'm going to want you to change it to now. What form is left? Standard. Everybody change this to standard form. You can either subtract something from both sides, or, in my opinion, easier, move it to the other side. Just remember, if you move it to the other side, you have to make it the opposite. Negative 2x plus y equals 8. That's all there is to it. That's all three forms. We started with a point and a slope. Then we got a slope and an intercept. Then we got standard form. Now, you might be wondering, why do we want standard form? What's it ever good for? Honestly, when you go up into higher level math, this is the form we use a lot for things like matrices. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they're like brackets like this. You use them in like honors pre-calc. And to get things into matrices, you can use that to solve really complicated triple equation problems where they give you three equations and you like have to solve them. All right, so the moral of the story is we need this for higher level math. And one more thing. I know you've all heard of this formula. X equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And notice they had a's, b's, and c's in them. That's a. That's b. And that's c. Now, we wouldn't use the quadratic formula on this because it's not a quadratic. But it tells us a and b and c. So get used to, if you ever need to know the numbers a, b, and c, that's a, that's b, that's c. Okay? So in the format ax plus by equals c, look at, there's your three numbers, a, b, and c. And this is just the x, and this is just the y. All right, now you know why you'd ever want standard form. Okay, the last thing I got to do is just ask you to graph things. And it's so easy if you know where to look for the point and a slope. But everybody make me one of these. An x and a y, you know, x-axis, y-axis. Draw one of those. If I give you a point and you don't know how to graph a point right now, well, I would say, man, you shouldn't be in this class. But the reality is maybe you just forgot. Maybe you just forgot. If I say negative 7 comma 1, do you know where that is? I hope so. If so, put a dot there. If not, I will show you in a second because you need to know how to graph. We're going to not only graph things, we're going to graph things, we're going to shade on the two sides of them, and we're going to intersect them with other graphs that you have to shade. So we got to get way beyond just graphing points. But to start it all, you start at 0, 0. And you go over 7 to the left, and you go up 1. And if you knew it was right there about, would you please raise your hand if you knew that? Awesome, thank you. Looks like most of you know how to graph a point. And now if I say that the slope is negative 1, from just thinking about how slopes work, you might be tempted to go like that. That would have been positive 1. Can you put the line in for a slope of negative 1? Why are you making it more complicated? Because I want to show you it's rise over run. And so it's rise of negative 1 over run of 1. And there's a dot. That's how you could have known that the line goes like that. My arrows are pretty bad. So if you have a point and you have a slope, you should be able to graph that point and slope. See, you graph the point, you make the slope through it. And the slope was negative 1, so I went down 1 over 1, put a dot. So your question might have looked like this though. Y, and then instead of just telling you the y was 1 by like that, they might have told you the y was 1 by putting it there. And instead of telling you the slope was just m is -1, they might have put the -1 there. And you're supposed to know that's where the slope goes. And then what would the last thing be? Plus 7, because you always do the opposite of this number there, and the opposite of this number there, right? So if they just gave you this, you should be able to go, okay, you just gave me a point, you just gave me a slope, I can graph that. All right. Here's another kind, y equals 7x plus 2. Can you graph that kind? I can, because I know where there's a point. It's called the y-intercept. And I know what the slope is. It's going to be really steep and positive. You should be able to graph that in like 2 seconds. Like, okay, I start here at this point, the y-intercept. And I do a really steep slope, because it's going to rise a lot. So did you start there at 2? And then how steep is it? Well, you can make it if marks if you want. I'd have to go like way up here though. Really steep. Ah, missed. Try again. Close enough. There you go. Goes through y-intercept, has a really steep slope, up 7/1. The worst kind of graph is this kind. But this one doesn't have a slope and it doesn't have a point. So we probably won't ask you to graph any like this, but I just want you to know how you could. I'm going to make this be, don't even copy this down, you don't have to. I just want to show you, you could still graph it by making points. It's right on the basic 20. Find me 3 points on this. Well, I'm going to stick in anything I want. I want to put in 0 here. I put in x is 0, and I figure out, well, y has to be. Well, 0 cancels this out. Can you, just in your head, figure out y has to be 4, kind of, except probably -4? Could you have done that in your head, maybe? 0, -4, see? It's a point. Do you get as soon as you have 2 points, you can just draw a line through the 2 points, and you have graphed it? You just need 2 points. Would you all please find me one more point? 0, -4 worked. Pick another number. Stick it in. Well, I don't know what number to pick. Pick any number.
1.
Okay, 1. You don't have to use 1 just because he said 1, but I'm going to use 1. And now this is 2 minus 3y equals 12. What do? I subtract 2 from both sides. Or if you wanted, do you get this 2 going over here is like putting this minus 2 in there? Huh? You could just move the 2 to the other side if you wanted to. Because it's not here anymore. I'm going to keep messing with your head on that until some of you are like, that's my new way. I like that better. It doesn't work for dividing, though. On dividing, you have to divide everything by that number. It'll only work for the additive subtract kind. So, y is 10/3. Well, you could use a calculator, and it would say it's 3.3. Negative 3.3, actually. You could graph that to just a decimal. You go a little past 3. No big deal. All right. And you could have picked an unlimited number of points. You could have put in y is 0. You could have stuck a 0 right here, and then you would have gone 2 times what makes 12? 2 times 6 makes 12. See, I can make a ton of points. And once I graph these points, it'll become obvious they're all on a straight line, and you'll be like, oh, I just put these 3 points on here, draw a line through them. So you could even graph that kind. But 9 times out of 10, when we give you a test on graphing, it's going to be like this or like this. Because here I got a point to start with. It's called the y-intercept. Here I got a point to start with. I don't have a fancy name for it. It's just a point. And both of them have a slope. There's that slope. There's that slope. So we almost always give you a point and a slope, and then you gotta graph it. All right. Please go to this page. I know I don't have too much more of your attention, only a little bit left, and then you're gonna turn into a, you won't be able to keep focusing. So, let's get a little further. Solving for y. Would you just solve both of these for y? What was that new way you were talking about, Mr. Server? Well, I just move this to the other side, and y would be alone. I'm going to put it in front, though, because I can put it in either spot. And that 4 is positive. Now, if it bothers you, I can do it this way, plus 6x plus 6x. Maybe you need that to keep it like you used to do. Nope, minus 6x. Dang it, I even did it wrong. I think the other way is easier. I really do. Some people think you have to like divide or something because the 6 has an x on it. You want to move the whole 6x, so you subtract 6x from both sides, or move it to the other side.
Wait, why would you? Because that's a negative 6.
Oh my gosh, is it a negative 6?
Yeah.
I drew over it. I scribbled over it. I didn't see that it was a negative 6. Dang it. Okay. That's even another reason not to do it that way. Another reason to just do it to move it to the other side way, like they did in my high school, is because you can just change it to the opposite sign. Y equals, and the opposite sign from positive or negative 6x is positive 6x. It's just less work shown. But I showed some work. I showed what I did. I circled this and moved it over there. Okay. How about solving this one for y? Well, my high school's way. Move that over. Now it's a negative 2x. The only thing is, the x should really be in front. So let's switch these around, which we can do. Negative 3y gets copied down, and negative 2x, and that's a positive 12. Is it solved for y yet? No, but it's close. For those of you that bothered, I'm just going to go minus 2x here, and you'll see, look, it canceled. And I have a minus 2x on this side. So if you want a minus 2x on both sides, you can. And now, divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. And some people do this with all one big divide sign over here. I don't think you should. I think you should divide them separate. I'll show you why. That's my slope right there. If you leave it with the 2 negatives in it, we just had a meeting about this. We agreed we're going to keep marking that wrong. You got to know that those negatives cancel. So on the test, you can't leave it with 2 negatives in the same, term, because those are supposed to cancel. And then that makes minus 4. It is happening a lot that kids are like leaving a minus and a minus. You can't do that. It's wrong. I've marked it wrong so far, but I have to keep marking it wrong. There's my final answer. I see a slope. I see a y-intercept. Okay. This is a critical unit. It is algebra, algebra, algebra. This is super important stuff. If you're not getting it, this is the time to get some help. Ask me. So, I have something cooked up for homework today that has to do with graphing. Let's do a little bit more so we can get to the graphing part. Right here. So if you had to graph this, do you see a slope? Do you see a point? Ooh, that's a special kind of a point. It's called a y-intercept. Graph it. Here, do you see a slope? You see a point, except be careful. It's the opposite of the numbers you see, And they're switched. Opposite and switched. All you need is a dot and then put a line through it at the right angle. The dot goes at -5 and put the slope through it at the right angle. Rise and run. All right, I'm going to pause for a second when I try this. Okay, let's see how I did. So this one has a slope of 2. See, I see the slope right there. And that is a rise of 2 and a run of 1. So I go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. They're all in a straight line. Coincidence? I think not. This one, I start at the point. Careful, it's opposite, opposite. -1, comma, +4. Did you start at the right spot? -1, 4. Then it rises -3. You go down 3. And it runs 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my dot. I don't want to do that a lot of times, kind of a pain in the butt. So I'm done. If you have 2 points, if you do both points right, you got it. Down 3 over 4. All right. And this is just going to be more of the same. So I don't feel like I need that much extra practice. But I'm going to just ask you to do one more. And I think this is the trickier kind over here. So would you just do this last question? And then I'm going to ask you to compare your graph. Make sure you do the opposite opposite to get your point. When I say opposite opposite, I mean the opposite of the number, and you switch their order. And then if you don't have a run, put it over 1. All right, pausing while you try that one, and then you're going to pair with this one with the kid next to you. Okay, so here's how you should have done it. First of all, opposite opposite, so that becomes +6, comma, that becomes -3, and the 6 was at the end, now it's at the beginning, and vice versa. Okay, so 6, -3. So I go over 6, down 3. There's my key starting spot. Slope down 4. Always go to the right. Hope you heard that part. If there's a negative, it just controls whether you go up or down. You always go to the right. So when you're done, should be a pretty steep line that goes through 2 points like that. Who had that one right? All right. Now, I need to get you to your worksheet, which is called U3L3 Graphing Worksheet. In case you're at home and you're like, which one is it? U3L3 Graphing Homework. All right. And there is just 8 questions. Kids will finish in class super easily, so there's none to skip today. And that's all I got for you for today.